Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Naru's Corner, and this time we will be repairing demolished buildings or bridges or whatever you can think of. So I've set up a scene where I just have to activate a skill. You start casting and you can see the growing trigger zone as it meets all the blocks and they fly to their correct places. You can see the inside is being rebuilt as well. Ta-da! It's good as new. Great, so this is what we'll be doing today, and I will just quickly hop back into the editor and we'll be right back. Here we are back at the editor. I've started a new scene and placed one of the buildings that were in the map before, just so we have something to work with. And what we're gonna do is that we are gonna need first a label, which we will use for grouping of the blocks that we want to be repairable, that will be destroyed and later repaired. And we will also need a storage, an entity storage, because we need each and single block to remember its original position, because as you can see we are starting with a complete building and we will destroy this building when the game starts and then rebuild it once those blocks touch the trigger zone. You could do it differently. You could just set up some time trigger zone and move all of them at once, whatever you want, but in this case we're gonna go with the trigger zone. So first we could go into the entity storage and we will create two variables. So each block will have and will remember its position, and since I want the destruction and the rebuilding to look better, we will also remember its rotation, and we will rotate them randomly as they are on the floor, or the ground, sorry. Yeah, so here we are. Okay, now we need to select all the blocks that should be affected by this destruction slash repairs. So I will select mostly everything. I don't really want to cover the ground because I think that if this was destroyed by some, I don't know, some either explosion or just time itself, that the base would survive, right? I mean, I'm not sure, but I just think so. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, did I select the second door? Yeah, I did. Great. So once you have selected all the blocks that you want, you can of course like split it into multiple labels, but then you would have to think about what labels will be triggered with in the trigger zones. So in our case we have one trigger. So you select all the blocks, mark them as animated so you can move them in the scene, and now add them into the label, which will take some time. Alright, sorry about the gap, that's some technical difficulties, but once you have selected all the blocks into the label, we will place a, let's say, global storage. So I like global storage. You can just have everything, you know, together. It's really nice. So we will create an instruction just so we keep it, you know, nice. We will name it a setup of the destruction. Does it make sense? No. Is it nice? Yes. Sorry. Okay, so we will call it on game start. If you've never created an instruction before, it's everything under this keyword, and here under all those default tiles, there are the ones that you create, and you can call them from somewhere like so. Okay, so now we will place for each loop, which will make sure that we list through all the entities that are in the label, all those animated ones, of course. See, we'll just select the label here, to get entities. And now what we need to do, we have to add the storage to each and every block that we go to, right? So once you add the storage, they will have their own variables for position and for rotation, right? So what we're gonna do, we are gonna save these with get position, here we are, and a get rotation. There, great. And we're just gonna copy this item. I'm just gonna rename it to block, just so you know. This is more, never mind, block is fine. Great. So what we've done so far is just we've assigned a storage, we've saved the original position and rotation of the block. So each block remembers where it should be when the building is completed, right? So now we can actually use a local variable that will take the position of the block, and this is just so we can manipulate it, because what we want to do is we have the blocks, we want to take the position and leave the x and z coordinates because we want it to remain on the roughly same spot, and we just want to move it down, right? You could manipulate it more, but for the sake of this tutorial, let's just lower the y vector, and you do it with a set y vector of the position to 0. Well, okay, we don't want to move everything to 0, so we are gonna use a random number like so, because what random number does is that, where are you? Here, there he is. What random number is, it returns the value between minimum and maximum, but you have to be careful that this returns only whole numbers, so you can't get 0.1 or something like that. So if you want decimal places, you have to say I want random number from 0 to 10, but I am gonna divide it by 10. Now I want to be more, I want to have more numbers between that range, so I'm gonna go from 0 to 100 and divide it by 100. So the maximum number I can get from this is 1, right? But I can also get 0.58 and so. So what we've done here is we have changed the value of this position to this new y, to this new height, and we are just gonna use set position of this block to this new position, and this should hopefully work. So I will just try to test out the game and let's see. Okay, as you can see, everything works well as it should. I don't want to say as it should, because you can see the railings are still quite high. No, sorry, fences or railing? Never mind. Anyway, these bad boys, see? But I think that what is gonna fix this is if we add random rotations, because once we add those rotations, everything will be just sort of messy and it will look like a proper demolished building. So we will return back to the editor. Nice. Here we are. So what I want to do is set a rotation of the block, and in this case I don't want to manipulate the original one. I will just take a new vector and I will place a random from 0 to 360, which is a whole round, right, from 0 to 360 degrees, and it will just select a random rotation for each block and it will rotate it that way. So that is the demolition part. Now we will move to actually building it back, and I've told you that we are gonna use a trigger zone for this, and you can of course come up with better solutions than just simple trigger zone. You could have some magical items that repair buildings, or just the tidal wave, I don't know. Sorry, I'm sure you can come up with something really smart. So for now, I'll just create a sphere with the radius of, no, 3 is, oh, that sounds good. Let's say 3. We're gonna leave it visible just so we can know what is happening. As I've said in the last video, purple is cool. Let's leave it at 3. Oh yeah, great, brilliant work. Now we can see nothing. Let's leave it at 11. Right, now we can roughly see where we are. And what we need to set is that it is triggered by labeled entities, and we are gonna select this. So what this does is anytime it hits an entity, it will be called and it will pass the entity that it hit. And you also want to check that you select fire each time the trigger object enters, exits the zone. Sorry. Yeah. So once you have that, we want it to follow the player, right? So we will also check that the zone should be animated. We'll go to the spawn point, add a script, and on player spawn, here we have the player, right? So we will use a follow instruction. This just sets the animated object you want to follow another object in the game, and the object followed can be anything really, even the player, and that is exactly what we want. So I will select a game logic. This is the object that should be following something, the target, and the target will be a player. Target offset will be x0, y will be 1.3, I think, because the base of the player is by his feet, and you know, I want it to be elevated, so the center of the sphere is somewhere in the middle of the player. Max speed I will set to something like 1000, and acceleration as well, because I want it to be as close to the moving player as possible, and I will just zero the distances. It means that it will always try to keep up with the player. Right, once we've set up that, we will go to the trigger zone, and now comes the last and final part, and that is telling the blocks to move to their positions. So we are gonna need on trigger enter, and here we are gonna say that it should move to, are we gonna use, yeah, we're gonna use speed. We're gonna use time as well, but I think speed is better because there are different distances that the block should travel, and in this case you are just telling the block how fast it should move, not in which time it should do it. So let's say speed 1.5. Let's see how it looks. Smoothing will be 1. Smoothing can always be just between 0 and 1, I think. So 1 is the maximum smoothing, and smooth out the beginning and the end of the transition of the movement. And here as an object will be the trigger entity. That is the block. I can also rename it here. That will be the block that we meet. And the position, that is the position that we saved into the storage here. Get position block, right? And we also need to rotate the block because we gave it some random rotation. So this will be rotate to object block, and rotation will be in the other variable. As a speed, I'm gonna go with something higher, like, I don't know, 130. I hope that's gonna be okay. And for smoothing, I'm gonna go with 0.5, just so, well, I don't know, I don't really know what I'm doing, right? So, and this should really be it. I think this could work, because we will just move it to its original position and we're done. So let's test it out. Okay, here we are. The trigger zone is following us, as you can see. And now comes the moment of truth. And it is moving. As you can see, the blocks could move a lot faster. I've set up a really slow movement for it, but once they actually move, they finally move to their right positions. Oh, I got a lift. That was nice. Okay, so you know, this is all just about tweaking the values by yourself. You might need something faster, you might need something slower. That's completely up to you and depends on the creation that you're trying to, you know, well, accomplish. And one thing I would also do if I were putting any more time into this is I would move those blocks. Once you move them to the ground, you could use the set X and Z coordinates to move them to the sides, so they are not moving completely upwards and they are moving a little bit to the sides. You know what? Okay, I'll just quickly remake it just to show you what I mean. Okay, here we are back at the global storage, and I will just quickly set the X and the Z part of the vector of the position, and I will use get that vector, get Z and get X, and use the number. This just means that I will get the original value, right? Original value for the X and the Z of the vector, and I will add a random number. Oh, I need another instruction because I don't want whole numbers, as I've already told you. And I will add, let's say, minus 200 to 200. No, 200 is way too much, isn't it? Let's say just 150 and minus 150. Okay, and slash divided by 100, just so we can get maximum of 1.5 and minus 1.5. Okay, this will take care of moving the positions on X and Z axis by only 1.5 tops to the sides, so the final movement will be more, you know, angled, and it will look more realistic that it's rebuilding than it was if it was moving just upwards. Now I'll just quickly tweak the speed, as I've said, let's say to like 5. 4.5, let's say. I don't want to overdo it, you know. Okay, let's hope this is gonna be better. Okay, now you can see that the building is much more demolished because the blocks are moved way off course, and some of the blocks are flying in the air, so you have to remember that and probably count with that when you are setting the position between 0 and 1 for the y coordinate, the height. You can either choose always 0, or you can, you know, use few raycasts on the terrain just to make sure what height is it at that part of the building, and count with that height. And once I start, you can see that they are moving much more realistic. And the door is still working. This is so beautiful. Oh no, now I got hijacked again. Right, okay, now we're back. Okay, and that's it. So you can see it's working perfectly, and I'm sure you can come up with some brilliant ways to use this. So for now, this is gonna be all. And by the way, as far as the last episode is concerned, I've promised you the counter thingy, and that will come out later this week, so if you're interested in that, around Friday it should be out. So for now, see ya. Sia? Who says Sia? It just sounds dumb, doesn't it? Just bye everyone.